Looking for that great next read or your new favorite author? Check out Amy's Bookshelf Reviews recommendations. You won't be disappointed. Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. It is a spin-off of the website and book review site of Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast is about book reviews, a writer's muse, a book's peruse, author interviews, and literary news. Welcome to the new year, where new things may happen with this. I hope you all enjoy, and thank you for listening.
Good evening, listeners. I'm Amy, and welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Today we are joined by an author. Please introduce yourself and let the audience know how they can connect with you.
Hello, Amy. Well, thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor. My name is Abdiel LeRoy, and my author name is that, or more often it's A. LeRoy. And I have been at this independent author business for, well, I guess since 2016 was when I published the first book. It is called Obama's Dream. And I have lived on 4 continents. I've had several different careers. I've been chewed up and spat out by the corporate world many times. And now I am house sitting. I am in Costa Rica this week. I'll probably be in Nicaragua next week, and so on. Now, the way to contact me is, well, there are several ways, but the homepage of my website will take you to everything else, and that is poetprophet.com, all one word.
Great, and I'll make sure that's in the description of this podcast. So,
yes,
I've been reading. I think I've pretty much read every single one of your books.
Yes, you have. You've been very steadfast, not only in reading them but in reviewing them too. So I've benefited from that greatly, and thank you very much. It's been over several years that we've been in contact.
Yeah, and when I see you have something else coming out, or like I told you before the show, I do I read your newsletter. Now, I subscribe to probably thousands of authors' newsletters, and some of them are just stuff that I already know, but there are a select few that I actually will sit and take the time to actually read them or go to the website if there's more information. And yours is definitely, it's like at the top of my list to read. And I think I don't know. I was mentioning it before, and I talked about that you have been censored and I know it's been in various ways, and that doesn't sit well with me. As I mentioned, I believe that we all have the right to think what we want, say what we want, and give our opinion, because everybody has one, and you don't have to agree with it, but we have the right to say it as humans. And I'm not talking whether it's one country or another country or continent or wherever, but I think as human beings, we have that right. So I thank you for coming on my show, and I'd like you to share with my audience what your life has been like and what you've been writing, what you've been working on, and go from there.
Yeah, well, you just laid out a whole lot of common sense. And what we've experienced, especially in the last several years, is that common sense has become vilified, censored, banned, shadow banned, and demonetized, and I have experienced all of those things. As an example, authors can run ads on Amazon, and I remember that overnight, Amazon UK just struck 60 ads that I was running on my book, The COVID Protocols, Upholding Your Rights in Authoritarian Times. So that's one of many, many examples I could cite. I lost an account on TikTok. I was running 2 other accounts, and the videos were being just struck over and over again. So it became a waste of time. It became an abusive relationship. I am not able to post to Rumble anymore. Now, of course, everyone knows that YouTube is highly censored and it's a surveillance tool. But a lot of the people who were on YouTube were instead going to Rumble. But even Rumble, it required me to enter my birthday in order to continue posting there, and it's none of their business. And so just reading the plain English text of the Bill of Rights, for instance, has become forgotten, much less upheld. So it has been narrowing the channels that I can communicate through. And as you observed, I was on a podcast with Richard Vobes in April. He's an English podcaster on YouTube, and he cut half of what we recorded, and he cut the most hard-hitting content. So that was frustrating for me, and I responded by writing a series of articles, which I have on my Substack now. So I have been writing in several genres, as you know. I've written poetry collections. I've written epic poetry. So an epic poem is something like Homer's Iliad or Homer's Odyssey or Virgil's Aeneid, Dante's Inferno. So these are grand.
Amazing.
What's that?
Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say that, you know, when I read your epic poetry, and those were the first things that I thought of, you know, Homer's Iliad and, you know, Dante's Inferno. And it was just, it just brought me back to those classics, because it's not, you know, it's not an easy task to write an epic poetry or things like that. I mean, I don't think I could undertake it, and I've written small poems, but I think that, it just kind of brought you back to that, and it was, they were amazing. And I liked just, you know, I think when I did that, I fell in love with your work no matter what it was. Because not only was, you know, prolific, and I think some people use that word incorrectly, but also that it just showed a level of intelligence and imagination and something and passion, I should say. So anything that you write, I can tell that it is, you know, your passion is behind it 100%, and you're not afraid to say or write what you want to. And I don't hate a lot of things, but I hate when people are censored just because you don't agree with it. It's like I live in the U.S. and it is not an easy time, but over the past few years, I have seen that more and more books have been banned from school libraries and, you know, public libraries, or their towns are not allowing their small business bookstores to sell certain books, you know, without a boycott. And I think that is, you know, it's one of my pet peeves is, you know, book banning and things like that. And I am an advocate for anti-censorship, and also, I think that all people should be able to read. I mean, I am a big reader myself, but I think being able to read is just as important as reading itself. And I'm sorry, and please continue on with what you were talking about.
Yes, thank you, Amy. But yeah, Paradise Lost is another of the great epic poems, and that's the central inspiration for my epic poetry and even for my name. So I have put this on my website of the origin of my name, Abdiel, because this is a name I chose for myself. And in book 5 of Paradise Lost, we first meet Abdiel because Satan is commanding his legions to join him in rebellion against the Most High. And of that multitude of angels, only one refuses. And he rebukes Satan. His name is Abdiel. He goes to join the loyal warriors. And then when the armies face off, the armies in heaven face off against each other, Abdiel strikes the very first blow of that battle because he sees Satan has surrounded himself with cherubim as if he were the Most High. And this incenses him, and he strikes Satan with such force that 10 paces huge, Satan back recoiled, the 10th on bended knee. So his example was so inspiring that I changed my first name to his. And he is an example of being willing to be the sole voice among a chorus of approval for the official narrative or the lies. And when you talk about book bans, you reminded me of the first time I came across it starkly was when I heard that an Arizona school board had banned The Tempest from being shared. So yes, now as you said, I've written across several genres: epic poetry, poetry collections, novellas, and memoir. But the main genre recently has been non-fiction because I've been responding to the global tyranny horror show that has been unfolding over the last several years. And I suppose we can trace its roots much further back, even centuries and millennia. And there was an episode in Britain, this was in 1982, I think, where the British were exploiting the war over the Falkland Islands, what the British call the Falkland Islands, what the Argentinians call Las Malvinas. And I saw the Orwellian state beginning to assemble there, or I first became aware of it anyway, when they prosecuted Clive Ponting, a British civil servant, for spilling the beans and blowing the whistle on what then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was doing. And then we had the 9/11 stuff, the Patriot Act, and most recently the COVID, the medical tyranny.
Yes, it was something that, when you're in it, you're at home, you're, sheltering in place, and basically it's like the world shut down and we were only hearing a few voices telling us what needed to be done, what was going on, what we needed to do. And, I just, you just didn't know what to believe, what was right, what was wrong. Even now, it's still out there. People are acting like, oh, it's just like the flu, but it's not. I had it. It's not just like the flu. And I had a mild case of it. And people are still dying from it. They're just not dying in droves like they were before.
Well, that's part of the narrative that was put out, that there was mass murder, there was genocide being done by governments first through the hospital protocols that were putting people on sedatives and then hooking them up to ventilators, which destroyed their lungs. So that was one part of the culling. And then, of course, the toxic COVID injections, which they dubbed vaccines, with novel technology in them, lipid nanoparticles, genetic material, and stuff we don't even know about now, and stuff that's showing up under high-powered microscopes. So there has been a toxic and murderous agenda that's been initiated against the people in nations around the earth. At the same time, it has increased awareness of what the agenda is, and it started off to our awareness, or to my awareness, in the medical arena, but then it spread to many other arenas as well, so that there's poisoning going on, there's chemtrailing, there's attacks on the food supply, there's radiation weapons, directed energy weapons, and on and on and on. So we are in a war. We are in a spiritual war as well. So that underlies much of what I present in my books, not just what's happening in the physical and material realm, but what's happening in the spiritual realm that's been directing all of this.
Yeah, I know. I read your COVID prophecies book several times, and there was so much, and it's been a while, but there was just so much that it kind of like eye opener, and then you wonder, okay, everybody seems to have their own agenda for things. I mean, I was at a point where, when we couldn't even touch people, I lost 2 years of my grandmother's life. She was my best friend, and I couldn't hug her. I couldn't touch her. And then she passed away at 101, and yes, I mean, people pass away, but because of that, I lost that time. Like, I couldn't hug my grandmother, who was my best friend. And then by the time, and even towards the end of her life, she only passed away at the time because she had fallen and laid on the floor for hours, and it kind of ate away at her body. But, I lost that time, and I know a lot of people lost a lot of things during that period, and even now people are still suffering from it. And I must admit, I was one that took the first shot, and after that, I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I mean, I felt worse than when I had COVID.
Yeah. Now, when you say your grandmother passed away, what year was that?
She died in 2022.
2022.
Yeah.
And so, did she die in hospital?
Yeah, she had fallen. They took her, and she was laying on the floor for 6 hours. She couldn't reach her life support button, for them to come in. She lived with my aunt and uncle, but she was 98 pounds soaking wet, and what was left of her muscle poisoned her system. We couldn't touch because of her age, and I have a low immune system, so we were told, no, you can talk through masks and doors and screens, but you can't touch each other. Even if you wear gloves and you put on 50,000 masks, and so I lost all that time. And yeah, she was fine 1 minute. She told me she was fine. I talked to her on the phone. She was planning on going home the next day. The next day, she was in a catatonic state. and that was it. She died 3 days after that.
So I'm going to ask you some difficult questions. Had she taken any of the COVID shots?
No.
Okay. When she was in the hospital, was she sedated?
No.
Was she hooked up to a ventilator?
No, she was not.
Okay.
When they couldn't wake her the next morning, they knew that my aunt and uncle were there, and I also talked to them that at that point they knew what was wrong with her, but they also said she had listeria, which is very strange because that's like a bacteria that you get from like eating cheese or something else that they told me about, and they don't know how she would have even had that. And then they did what they called, I think they called it comfort care. Just, they just kept her IV saline fluids and kept her as comfortable as possible. She wasn't in pain, but she tried to communicate with me, and people thought she was just breathing heavy, but I could tell by looking in her eyes that she knew I was there, and she was trying to speak, but she couldn't. And then she passed away in her sleep.
Yeah, this must be a painful recollection for you.
Yeah, it's still very hard for me. My mother died in 97, and I'm still have to process that, and then I have to, and my grandmother, a few days after she passed away, my father, who's always had memory problems because he had a TBI, was found wandering, in 99-degree weather with his winter coat on, and he didn't know where he was. So he is now in a memory care facility, and he has progressive dementia. So I'm like, and he's at that point now where he doesn't even know who I am at all. So it is painful, but I don't, it's like you got to keep pushing. And I'm not in the best of health, but I keep doing what I have to do and help other people. And I try to give people a voice who don't have one, or they think they can't have one. And so that is kind of like one of my purposes in life.
Yeah, and I am amazed at the volume of stuff that you do, the amount of books that you get through. And you've kept this going for several years. When did you start?
2014.
Okay, so yeah.
On my 11th year.
Over a decade, yeah.
And that's just the reviews, because before that, there wasn't really a place unless you were a magazine or a newspaper for, posting reviews. You only got a review if, you were like a best-selling author. And I wanted to, because they finally did and gave us this outlet where we could post some reviews. And I've had trouble with Amazon where one day they just deleted all of my reviews. And I fought and fought to get them back. And it wasn't because I needed them back. It was because the authors that I wrote them for needed them back. And I think 98% of them were restored after a while.
Yeah, I've heard many stories about Amazon. There was one time in particular where they were extremely vicious in culling reviews. And I remember the forums I was on as an independent author lamenting what was happening to their reviews, because it hurts. The hills we have to climb to get our books out and then to get them noticed. And it can take a lot of investment of time and effort to get attention to our books and getting reviews. And even when, as you know, some people who will pledge to do a review don't,
Yeah.
So when we have them as independent authors, it's a precious resource. And then if Amazon at the whim of an executive, or even worse, the whim of some algorithm decides to cull, then it can be extremely injurious. And I have been trying to build alternatives to Amazon. I'm not exclusive. I also have my books on Apple and Barnes and Noble and various other outlets. And I'm also selling paperbacks and ebooks directly now.
Oh.
So, and at a discounted price to what you would pay on Amazon, in order to try and wean us all off this highly monopolistic enterprise that Amazon is.
Yeah, they just, when they first started, it was to sell books, and that was it. That was what they did. They sold books, and I thought at the time, I was like, wow, because I was able to buy books that I hadn't been able to find because they were out of print for so long. And I was able to work with that, which was great. But you're right too. There are people promising reviews and they don't follow through. I myself am an independent author, and I published my first book in 2005, well before Amazon, well before Google exploded. And I promoted my books with literal paper flyers that I would mail out or put on local bulletin boards when they still had bulletin boards. So, and even now I am more known for my book reviews than the books that I actually write.
Yeah. I say that, I mean, you, as I said, you've been very steadfast, and you've always gone through. On some of my readers make casual promises, and I try not to do casual promises. I think I've probably broken a few too in my life. Or yeah, I'll let you know when I such and such, or I'll give you a call when, you know, but yeah, so that's one thing that can be critical for an independent author is to follow through on those promises, because often I've given away a free book. You can have the free ebook, and I can't hold a gun. But if they promised a review, I think it's only fair to follow up.
Oh, I totally agree. And even books that I read for my own entertainment or research, you know, I write a review, and I don't care if the author has been dead 100 years or 1,000 years. I still, you know, write a review. And I think, you know, more people should realize that there are other people, there are authors out there, and we're not in competition as authors. We should be a community, and I am part of a great community of authors around the world. But there are still those that think that only their book is the best and only their book should be read. And then you read it and you're like, eh. And I've read some books that are bestsellers, and I'm like, who did you pay to become a bestseller? Did you have your father buy 1 million copies of your book? Because it's terrible.
Yeah, I've noticed too that a very high error rate in some of the books published by the top 5 or top 6. I was pretty shocked. I can't remember the name of the book now, but it was a book by Cash Carraway, and it became more and more error-ridden as I went through it. And I thought, don't they have proofreaders? I mean, these enormous publishing houses, they're just obviously giving a very perfunctory look at the book before it goes out. So my stuff is, I'm much more attentive to that than even the big publishers.
Oh, I do the same thing. I mean, I offer editing services to authors, and I do it based off of their budget. I've
Mm-hmm.
talked to like professional editors, that work for, agents or publishers. And, one time this, editor was telling me that, the book she was editing, she was paid $20,000 to edit, a, a book that was over 100,000 words. And I'm thinking, really? No wonder authors are trying to self-edit and then pass it through.
Mm-hmm.
And I just tell the authors that, tell me what you can, I have a set fee, but that's like my top fee. And then whatever they can afford, I'll work in their budget, but I never, sacrifice quality, whether they paid me $5 or $500, so.
I think it's very brave that you edit authors. I've tried it a couple of times, and they resent the improvement sometimes. um,
Now,
and I
sometimes they have to, they have to let you know what, okay, what do you want me to tell you? What do you want me to look for? And that's the thing that I ask them, because I'm not going to take away your voice. And I had this one author who, sent me work from somebody that she knew and said, oh, after you edited your work, someone else looked at it and saw all these errors. And I said, no, that was the way the author wrote. It wasn't necessarily incorrect. I mean, maybe grammatically incorrect, but it was the author's writing style. And the author, himself was, he was a high functioning autistic person who was writing his point of view about his life. And I said, I would never take away his voice. So if you want to make it perfect, then you might as well just not even, then it's not his book anymore. It's someone else's. But I really, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I hope that I will be able to have you on again. I really do appreciate you taking the time. And don't you get tired moving from continent to continent?
Well, I'm house sitting most of the time now, so I house sit where I can and rent where I can't. And I would love to have the kind of life-changing income that I've been hoping for all these years. It hasn't been forthcoming, at least not yet.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it does get tiring, packing and unpacking and storage and all that stuff. It would be a blessing to have one place and make that my base.
Well, I think that you're just amazing. Your work is amazing, and you as a person are amazing. So, thank you very much for being on my show.
This is, well, right back at you. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I'll leave you with because when I got censored, or as we talked about, Richard Folks cutting half the material we recorded, I wrote a 3-part series of articles, including.
I don't know if we lost connection or not. So I'm just going to pause for a second.
Okay.
Okay. Your final thought, you said? You had something to say?
Oh, yes. When my material got cut from Richard Vogue's show, so the topic was prayer to overthrow empire and emperors. So as a response to that, I wrote a 3-part article that includes everything that I wanted to say but wasn't broadcast. And that's called Prayer to Slaughter Tyrants. So my Substack URL is poeti.substack.com.
Great. Thank you. So, if you wish for you or your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast. Thank you for listening. Be safe, be well, and always be kind.
Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. If you are looking to be on the podcast or looking for a book review, you can go to amysbookshelfreviews.com and look for the appropriate navigational menu. Again, thank you all for listening and being a supporter of this podcast and of the Amy's Bookshelf Reviews professional reviewers of books and audiobooks. Thank you all. Be safe and be well.